Longtime Democratic Congressman Ed Markey won his race as expected in Tuesday's special election in Massachusetts for the U.S. Senate. It brings to a close the 5-month Senate career of William Moe Cowan, who was appointed earlier this year to replace now Secretary of State John Kerry, and who, by the way, will join us on set for tomorrow's program. Cowan's departure from the Senate will slash in half the number of African Americans currently serving in the Senate, from 2 to 1. In all of modern history, there have only been 6 African Americans who have served in the U.S. Senate, and half of them weren't even elected. They were appointed to their seats. 2 others also served way back during Reconstruction, almost 150 years ago. After Markey is sworn in, the only remaining African American in the Senate will be Tim Scott. He's a Republican from South Carolina. He was appointed early this year, and he's going to be running for a full term in 2014. In his farewell address on Wednesday, Cowan talked about how slow progress has been when it comes to diversity in the Senate.
With my appointment, and coincidence with the appointment of Senator Scott, 2 African Americans are serving in this body concurrently for the first time in our nation's history. Senator Scott and I are, respectively, the 7th and 8th black senators to serve in this body. While I believe this number to be far too few, I am also hopeful that it is a sign that these United States will soon be represented by a more diverse population that more closely reflects the diverse country that we are and the diversity of opinions that exist across and within our diverse nation.
So my second bold prediction of the day, this one I actually feel more confident in, is there will be a second African American in the Senate this fall, Cory Booker in New Jersey, but still that will be 2 out of 100. And Perry, when you look at it, we have a black president, we have 4 or 5 dozen African American members of the House, and 1 in a week African American senators. And I mean, what do you make of how that's come about?
It's still really hard as an African-American politician to win in a big statewide race. We only have 1 black governor, Deval Patrick, Massachusetts. This is not an accident. It's really hard. A lot of the members in CBC districts sort of are pretty liberal, perceived as pretty liberal, don't have big fundraising bases, so they have a hard time winning statewide races. But it's really galling at this point. And it also really matters in terms of policy as well. If you think about the Voting Rights Act this week, was struck down. Who in the Senate is going to take that up? If you watch how like the female senators are handling sexual assaults in the military, the female senators are really driving that issue because there's 20 of them and they can speak to issues. Like when, on an issue like the Voting Rights Act, Cory Booker, if he was here, kind of has to represent all the black senators, basically, because he'll be the only black Democrat. If there were 5 or 10 black Democrats, you could imagine a lot of issues being handled very differently in the Senate, but it's hard to imagine that number, reaching that number anytime in the next 10 years of the way we're going.
And I think I saw Tim Scott, the Republican from South Carolina this week, was not out there saying, I'm outraged by the voting rights decision. He was saying, the exact opposite. And that's sort of key to his Republican appeal in South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I think another, issue, I think it really gets down to money. I mean, I think this is a real problem, and not just, I think it's a problem for progressive candidates. They don't have the same type of corporate base, and it's a problem for African American candidates.